Folks, we are back with another episode of DramaQuest. Today, another lore episode. We're going to be talking about the Enchanter Epic. I know it's been a while since my last Epic series video. I'm happy to get back to it. The Enchanter Epic was a little bit of an intimidating one because I'd never really touched it at all in EQ before, so I got to learn a lot myself here, and it's cool how much it touches so much of the rest of the EQ world. But before we jump in there, first, thank the patrons. So, I want to start with Jake. Jake, thank you very much. Fungus, Kevin, Andrew, and Brodocan. Thank you all. You guys are awesome. Appreciate your support. And I appreciate the support of all the patrons, both past and present. You guys are great and make me feel really great about the podcast. And of course, a lot of people hit me up in Discord and stuff to talk about things. I really appreciate that. I love it. Feel free to DM me and blow up my phone and stuff all the time. I love to BS about lore and just to hear your thoughts about drama and EQ and in the history of EQ. So never feel shy about that stuff with me. Now, with no further ado, our sources, of course, we always have the primary EQ game. We have our Game Master's Guide, where we get a little bit of expanded lore on the Enchanter Epic itself. And we've got Monsters of Norath, where we learn a little bit about some of the NPCs that you have to kill during the Enchanter Epic. So, with no further ado, though, we'll go into the in-game quest line before we talk about the auxiliary information. So basically, if you were going to do this naturally, you would hear about this new NPC that was in Eridan in the Vasty Deep Tavern. He's up top, and his name is Stofo Olin. So if you were to talk to him, you hail him, he says, "Good day, I've discovered something truly wonderful. If I only had the materials required so I could copy my notes and send them to my teacher." It's weird that he doesn't have the materials to copy his notes in Eridan. It's like the chief city of learning in the world. I would imagine that they have pen and paper and ink, but nevertheless, you're going to have to do a mini quest here for this guy to get him a mechanical pen, some dark ink, and some paper. You say, "What did you discover?" He says, "I was researching a new spell and discovered new information concerning the history of the Serpent." "Who's your teacher?" "My teacher is Jeb Lumpsed. He was last seen in the regions of the newly discovered lands. If you wish to find him, that's where you should seek him out." Well, the newly discovered lands in this context, of course, right after Kunark released, so everyone's got Kunark on their mind. That's what we're thinking. In fact, at the time of this quest, I believe we would still assume that Verona Vi is kidnapped, and therefore the new region is certainly Kunark. And when we talk about the history of the Serpent, you would probably think Shissar. At this time, I think we're still, not having seen the actual Shissar race in any form. I don't even think we really had a lot of concept art for it, or the concept art we did have looked a lot more like the stuff that we see in the Temple of Khazad-Thul. So our concept of what these serpents would look like were definitely different. But nevertheless, you ask him, "Hey, what materials do you need?" He says, "A mechanical pen, ink of the dark, and white paper. Bring me those and I'll give you a copy of the information." How do you find it? Well, you have to go to the Kanos Aqueducts, to the Bloodsaber cult area, and you talk to Riania Jukal, and she'll tell you about how to get the ink. So you'd have to go all the way to the Ghoul Scribe in Lower Guck, charm it, hand it a vial, and it provides you with its own blood, which is used for ink. Okay, don't know why we would have to use this, but nevertheless, it's kind of cool. To get a mechanical pen, you've got to trade with a gnome in Akanon. You have to give him a shiny metallic robe, also from Lower Guck, from the Archmagus. Cool. And he'll give you a mechanical pen. It seems like a bad trade, if you ask me, but nevertheless. And then white paper, you go to West Karana, and there's a merchant there that you would be able to get white paper from, but they say that the paper was stolen by a bandit. So you kill the bandit, retrieve the paper that way. And then you can take the piece of parchment and go back to this guy. There's a sub-quest there where you have to get her a quill and parchment from research vendors and bring it back for her to reveal that while you were gone it was stolen, blah, blah, blah. But nevertheless, you do all this, and then you go back to Stofo Olin. You give him the materials. He says, "Yes, this is exactly what I wanted. Here, take these notes. My teacher will be very interested if he's shown what I've found." You get the copy, and then you have to find Jeb Lumpsed. All we know at this point is that he is somewhere in Kunark. So, being that this is the Enchanter Epic, a number of NPCs that you encounter are using illusions to hide. So, your first indicator that this person that we're about to find is important is that they're called a Sarnak imitator in Burning Woods. Imitator being not really a Sarnak, right? So this is actually the Master Enchanter, Jeb Lumpstead. So you go up to him and you just say, "Are you Jeb Lumpstead?" And the Sarnak imitator says, "Yes, I am. Use your most enlightened magic to seek the truth of what is around you. When that is done, you will know what you seek." So you give him the copy of the notes that you got from Stofo, and he looks them over and he says, "I see what you have, or I see that you have what I was waiting for. Stofo does do excellent work. It seems that you're about to start on a long journey. Take this seal, and I will guide you, and it will guide you on your next step. Seek out the masters of enchantment. In time, we will craft the Serpent for you. When you have collected the 4 parts of the staff, you must combine them in a bundle and return them to me. Take the seal. You will need to show the seal to the other masters so they may grant you the tools to complete your next tasks. When you've collected the 4 parts of the staff, combine them in a bundle for me. Good luck and safe travels." So this part of the quest that we've done so far, I think is strictly optional. I think you could actually just go up to them, ask for bags, and complete the steps in terms of like actual gameplay mechanics, and you would be good to go. You don't have to do the whole Jeb Seal piece, but for lore, it's important that you do it. So I'm pretty sure you could also do them in any order, but we're going to go in what is traditionally considered like the normal order. So you ask him about the 4 masters, and he'll reveal their names to you, and you say, okay, like Modani is a master of illusions. You should seek him out first. Keep a careful eye out for him. He is never in his true form. The last time I spoke to him, he seemed very excited about his voyage to the Elven Outpost. You may or may not find more clues about his location there. So, to actually find him, you need to go to the Over There, where he's taking the form of a Scorpicus, which is that scorpion, the pale white scorpion mobs that are all over the area around Howling Stones. So, in that gorge, there's some tunnels, and you can find Modani Kulani. He says, "The hidden self inside a myriad of magic is one that walks quite softly. Yes, that is what you must seek. If you give him Jeb's seal, he'll say, 'Ah yes, Jeb's seal. The time to craft a serpent must have come. I will need components collected to craft the first of the pieces. I will also provide you with a sack, which you must combine items. Are you ready to collect them?' You say, 'Yes, I need a sack.' He gives you a sack. And this is a part we'll skip in the future, but basically, each one of these guys you go up to, they give you a sack. You could use any person's sack for any part of the quest, as far as I know. And that's it. So he tells you, 'Scattered throughout the world are various items. To prove your worth, go collect these and return them to me. The Zolian Rod, Inruk's Word, Chalice of Kings, and Snow Blossoms.'" Now, it's important to note that he doesn't say that these are necessarily required for the construction of the staff itself, but that they are part of proving yourself worthy. So, the Chalice of Kings is just a chalice of elven kings, recently thought to be lost to the ages. It was discovered. So, the magical power is needed, now he talks about the need, is needed to create a magical liquid. You ask about the rod. This is the rod of an ancient civilization found on this continent. Nothing is known of it other than that the Scaled Ones discovered it years ago. What are the Snow Blossoms? These are flowers that are used in the creation process. They were once widespread, but now I'm told they only grow in select places. And what is Inruk's Word? That is the strict doctrine of the priests of Inruk. It's used as a material component in the crafting. The power of their hate must not be underestimated. So, to get this Chalice of Kings, first and foremost, you talk to Joran Nobleheart, a member of the nobility in southern Felwith, and he says, "I hope you've been sent by the king. There's an urgent matter at hand." You say, "Well, I have been sent by the king." He says, "Our sources at the outpost have learned that the Chardakian royal family had a part in the disappearance of Ferona Vi." Remember, she's been kidnapped with the start of Kunark. "I have been ordered by King Tiras Thex to locate the individuals familiar with the new lands and to order them to the gates of Chardock Mountain. Do you accept the king's order?" You say, "I do." He says, "Gather your forces and march on the gates of Chardock. You're to strike deep into the home of Overking Bathisid. Your goal is not to kill the Overking himself, but his only living heir. His son's head will be the price to pay for their involvement in this kidnapping. So you go there, you kill the prince, and bring the head back to Jorah Nobleheart. He says, "Vengeance has been fulfilled. However, the king still has a heavy heart. Not until Verona has been returned can the sadness be lifted. But in appreciation of your efforts, I'm honored to present to you the king's chalice." So your first item is acquired. Next is the Zolian Rod. To get this, you just have to go find Vessel Droslin in the sewers underneath Cabalus and kill him, and pretty much just drops the rod. But the question I've always had is, like, how are you supposed to know that Vessel Droslin is this NPC that you need to kill? I looked all over. I talked to everybody I could find about the Zolian Rod, and I couldn't really get any information about it other than what we already know when we hailed the initial NPC. Certainly nothing that I found pointed me in this direction. But what I did find was that when you're down in the sewers and you're around Vessel Droslin, he talks about the Zolian Rod. And so I'm guessing that you would have to hear rumor from other players. What he says is, this is a kill message that Vessel Droslin has. He says, "You may get the Rod of Zolian, but the Crusaders of Green Mist will bury you in this pit." That is the only mention I could find anywhere outside of the NPC who assigns the task to you of the Zolian Rod. So I assume what was supposed to happen is, like, newbie XR players are supposed to see this in the sewers, the kill message go out, because Vessel Droslin runs around and kills like mosquitoes and stuff down there. And then they will mention it. It'll propagate through the community, and then the enchanter who has been tasked with finding it will see this. So you go down there and you kill Vessel Droslin, and you acquire this Zolian Rod, which is an artifact of the Shissar, most likely. For the Snow Blossoms, you have to do a sub-quest in Ogok, which is kind of funny, between a few ogres, and then you are awarded the Snow Blossoms. And Inaruk's word is, of course, held by a cleric of Inaruk, so that's going to be somewhere in Neriak, and you can eventually figure out that this is supposed to be Verena Tomb. And when you kill Verena Tomb, you receive Inaruk's word. So you take this back and combine them in the Enchanter sack, and you return them to Modani. Modani says, "Excellent, you've done well. Here is the first piece of the staff. Now you must go seek out the second master. He will clear the path for you." So you could either, when you first talk to Jeb, you could talk to him about all four masters, or you could go back. I think technically you're supposed to, like, go back and talk to him, but he can give you the path for all four of these guys at once. Anyway, regardless of how you did it, he would say, "Mizzle is a gnome who has mastered the use of enlightened magic. Go to him once you have spoken to Modani. Mizzle is not one to travel, so you should not have to look far from his home to find him." Finally, someone we don't have to explore all of Cunark to find. In this case, Mizzle is Clockwork VIIX. I don't know Roman numerals enough to know what that number is offhand, but that's actually Mizzle in the guise of a clockwork. And you go up to them and you say, "Are you Mizzle?" "Oh, hello, I am Mizzle. I bet you want to be given true clarity, don't you?" If you give him Jeb's seal, he says, "It's time then. Are you ready to get the required components?" So you get your sack again, and he says, "Bring me a spoon, the one key, the lost scroll, and the book of charm and sacrifice. Then I will reward you with that which you seek." You say, "What spoon?" He says, "It's a giant-sized tool I will need to use to stir my magical pot. The spoon will help finish the ritual of crafting." Okay, so we need a giant spoon. What key? He says, "It's a key I lost long ago when I was traveling with a companion. We were traveling in the new lands, flying over some large crevices when the key dropped out of my pocket." All right, large crevices in the new land immediately makes you think of the over there, right? The area where New Chelsith, or Chelsith probably was, like the Sarnak city got pulled up, right, and left this big gorge where the mines were taken. It's kind of like where the Howling Stones are. So, okay, he dropped his key there while flying over the continent. What lost scroll? The lost scroll contains the magical incantation I need to help you out. It was penned ages ago by the elves. It was lost, along with its protector, during one of the raids on the outpost in Verona Vi. I fear it may be lost for good. That's a tough one. That's a little bit tougher. So the scroll was held by someone in Verona Vi, one of the defenders there, and when the inhabitants of Cunark raided the city, trying to force the High Elves and the other Narathians back off the continent, apparently that person was killed or captured and the scroll was taken. So that could be any number of things. It could have been Froglocks or or forest giants, or the Ixar, or forces of Inrosathir, like, or the Drolvargs. There's a ton of places. I think innately, or initially, like what I would be thinking if I was an enchanter and I didn't have a guide, I would go to Carnors for that, which would be wrong, by the way, just because there are a lot of Drolvargs around this area. What book of charm and sacrifice? Oh, it's a book of good reading. If you want to take the time to read it, I haven't had much free time, but now that you're getting the supplies from me, I can probably take a break. So going in the order that they were told to us, first we have the spoon. This drops from Kazil, which is a named giant in South Row. Now, the Monsters of Norath manual here talks a little bit more about Kazil. It says that Kazil is actually an ancient giant who has survived since the time of the curse. He is, in fact, cursed, right? So not a giant of the old power, but he has existed since back then. So this is an old Relosian Empire giant. And for his part, Kazil has been gifted with unnatural regenerative abilities, which has kept him alive this entire time. And if you kill him, he only appears to be dead and will soon regenerate back to his normal functioning self. So over the years, scholars have begun to believe that Kazil is more a title than a giant person, and that it's just like whoever is the most dangerous sand giant out in the desert calls himself Kazil. But in reality, it's this singular giant which has existed since ancient times and has a powerful regenerative factor for whatever reason that keeps him alive. The Book of Charm and Sacrifice is ground spawn in Plane of Sky on a wooden table. I think it's in the quest room there. So you go in there and just find it on a table. Okay. The one key is a ground spawn in the over there. And the Lost Scroll is in the Crypt of Dalnir. So the Crypt of Dalnir is the Cly. That's what I was getting confused. I was thinking Chardok because the Cly, which are Sarnak, rule the Crypt of Dalnir. But yeah, the Lost Scroll is with the Cly. And that makes a lot more sense when you think about it, because the Cly are a bunch of enchanters. And they were enchanters that served, I want to say, Hagglebaron Dalnir for a while, which is in some way related to the lore of Kern. More on that in a future episode. But yeah, the Lost Scroll was eventually taken there. And that makes sense because they're always capturing people to take and experiment on. They can charm people and just take them off or mesmerize them. And it's where you go as an enchanter because there are so many enchanter mobs. So it makes a little bit of sense for the Lost Scroll to be there. Anyway, you take all of these items, combine them in the bag, and bring them back to Mizzle. And he says, "Oh, excellent. You've done what is required. Here, take this part and seek the third master. You're well on your way." So halfway done now with the quest. The third piece is going to be from Nadia. So Jeb describes Nadia as the mistress of charm, very beautiful. She too traveled with her relatives to the new land. I just recently received a letter from her. She says more and more pilgrims and explorers are arriving every day, and that the outpost is well defended now. So that tells us she's in Fronavai. So the NPC we're looking for is Nadia Starfeast. You go to Nadia and you hail her, and she says, "Hello, my dear. I'm quite pleased to make your acquaintance, perhaps even charmed." Oh, it's very funny. You show her the seal, and she says, it must be time to reveal the staff. The piece I will help you craft is encrusted with magical gems. These gems must contain the essence of various creatures. Alone, they have very little power, but when combined together, they're much more powerful. They must be combined in a sack. Just ask if you don't have one. So she's going to give you several gems, and each one has a different essence that must be put into the gem. First, you have a diamond, then a sapphire, a ruby, and an emerald. For the diamond, you need a particular bookworm, and not like a worm like a dragon, but like a worm like someone who's reading a lot of books, like a librarian. For the sapphire, you need a golden fairy. For the ruby, you need Jaxian, who is named specifically, and then for the emerald, you need Scorpion, aka Scorpicus. So we're back to the over there for that. For this diamond, you actually have to go to Kesora and find the Spectral Librarian. And this leg of the quest, you're pretty much going to be charming things and then trading them items. So all of them, I think maybe one of them isn't, but I think most of these are hostile NPCs that you have to trade with. So You go there, you find the Spectral Librarian. Makes sense, it's a bookworm. You charm it and you give it the diamond. It says, you have no idea what it's like to be trapped in this place. Take your precious little stone and leave. And then an enraged Spectral Librarian will attack you. Probably in a lore sense, you kill it, but in reality, you just gate out of there. And you've got your enchanted diamond. Then you have to find Felia Goldenwing, which is a Chromodrak in Skyfire Mountains, and charm her to get her essence by giving her the enchanted sapphire. Or rather, the dull sapphire. And then you receive the enchanted sapphire. You find the Wraith of Jackson in the City of Mist, all the way at the top, and give him the ruby once he's charmed. And you will get the enchanted ruby. The emerald is going to be Impaler Xylug, which is a named Scorpicus outside of Howling Stones. And this one also gives you some flavor text when you turn it in. Your bidding has been done. Now leave this land and never return. You go back and you return this bag to Nadia, and she says, lovely, you are indeed quite the charmer. Haha. Here, take the third part and seek out the last master. The time draws near. I like that they say that, like Nadia on both sides of the quest calls you a charmer, and then the task requires you to charm 4 of the NPCs that you interact with. So now you're entering the final phase of the quest here, and this is arguably the hardest, or the one that requires the most friends. So now you have to seek out the Master of Phantoms. He is the last one you will seek. Pulzin is native to Eridan, however, after an incident near Payneal, no one has heard from him. I hope that he's well. We'll find out a lot more about Pulzin and his story in the expanded text that is in this book. So you go find Pulzin in the hole, and you hail him. He says, yes, young one. You give him the seal, and he says, are you ready for the test of the phantasm? You say, I'm ready for the test of the phantasm. He says, it'll be simple. Go collect these items and return them to me. Head of a serpent, essence of a ghost, essence of a vampire, and sand of the mystics. Do so, and you will receive the last of the pieces. Be sure to combine them in a sack first. You say, what is the head of a serpent? He says, the serpent is probably not an accurate term for what you must return to me. It is actually the remnants of a spirit. The spirit is one which was eradicated long ago by the Ixar. I believe they were called the Shisar. This is, I think, the first time we actually see the Shisar brought up in the quest text. You may need to travel to the Ixar city to learn more about these creatures. What is the essence of a ghost? You don't have to look far to find roaming spirits. One in particular, though, has more meaning than the other sorry souls trapped here. You see, Kindle was a dear friend of mine. I came in search of him when he stopped writing. Well, look at me now. I fear that I have succumbed to the same fate as poor Kindle. What is the essence of a vampire? The essence of a vampire is just that. Only the most powerful of these creatures will possess what you need. And lastly, what are the sands of a mystic? They are the sands which were imbued with magical might of the mystics. Mystics use a ritual involving their own blood to create a powerful bond with the sand. One will need to search the shores. So not a lot to go on here except for with Kindle. But luckily, it's 2024 and we know most of this stuff. Now, with the Shisar and the Shisar being dead, you could eventually puzzle out that if it was anywhere, it was going to be in the Plane of Fear, because, you know, that's the god they worship was Khazak Thul, that's his domain, and they're dead. So you have to kill the Wraith of a Shisar, which spawns at the top of the temple in the Plane of Fear around the Ring of Fire area. You do that, and you will get the head of a serpent. Next, you would kill the Ghost of Kindle, which is found in the hole, right, not too far from where you just had your meeting. Then you have the Essence of the Vampire, which is a rare drop from a Forsaken Revenant, basically a trash mob in Plane of Hate. And finally, the Sand of the Mystics is in the possession of the Tangren, which is a giant ape that is off the coast of Field of Bone on a small little island there. You return those, and you get the fourth piece of the staff. You've done well. Take this last piece and return them to Jeb. He will be able to complete the final crafting. So you take it all, you combine it into the bundle, and he says, the path you have taken was long and hard. Now you are worthy to bear the serpent. Use it well. It strikes me that, like, they like really work with you here for basically no reason. Like, why didn't they just combine combine it all themselves. You know what I mean? Like, why are you the person who was able to get the epic when all the pieces were already owned by these guys? I guess they weren't all owned because they had each one of them seemingly had to do a ritual with the items that you grabbed. But yeah, it's just strange that that they just like let you have it, I guess. Now we'll go into the Staff of the Serpent expanded piece here from the DM guide, and I'm just going to read it straight off to you guys so you get the full thing. Norath's first great enchanter, Krillin Pedin, is usually credited for discovering the Serpent Staff. Though the exact origin of the artifact is shrouded in uncertainty, it was through Pedin's meticulous study and research that it came to light at all. Some speculate that the staff was created long ago, when the Ixar were yet slaves to a snake-like race known as the Shisar. Ixar, who displayed exceptional intelligence, were taken aside and taught the dark arts in order to better serve their oppressors. Thus, the way of the Ixar necromancer was born, and with their newfound knowledge came the growing desire to be free of Shisar rule. Before the Enlightened were able to put their rebellious plans into motion, however, a green mist descended upon the Shisar and decimated that great race. The Ixar stood before the fallen remains of their enemy. Kiririka, foremost student of the Shisar's dark rites, knelt and took up as many of the fallen scales as she could hold in her taloned hands. She carried the scales to the now empty studies, and there fashioned a staff from the remains of the Shisar themselves, scaled and oily black, dark as the rites she had been forced to learn over the years. Eventually, though, Kiririka disappeared in one of the bouts of turmoil and unrest that plagued the new Ixar dynasty, and her fabled staff faded into legend. Years later, while exploring the newly discovered lands of Kunark, a Quattadal, aka High Elf, beguiler by the name of Krillin is said to have uncovered the whereabouts of the infamous Ixar Drusilla Sathir. After bargaining with a froglock deep in the Kunark swamps, Krillin persuaded the creature to give him a key which Krillin believed could open the mystical door of Drusilla's resting place. Here, he could surely uncover an enormous amount of information regarding Drusilla and her equally infamous husband, Veneral Sathir. Krillin's research took him to the Over There, past the ruins of Chelsith, and into a great rift where he wandered for weeks in search of Drusilla's tomb. It was here that Krillin first met Modani Kulani, or some say Modani found Krillin. Modani, a master of illusion who had been living amongst the Scorpicus for years, had uncovered the mystical portal, but had yet to open it. In exchange for leading Krillin to the portal, Modani asked for only one item, a staff in the shape of a serpent, which Modani believed to rest within the tomb. According to the Scorpicus, the staff, an item of considerable power, was given to Drusilla as a gift from her husband. To Drusilla and Veneral, it served as a reminder of the Ixar triumph over the Shisar, and the power and strength of their race. Now, it makes sense that this would be the case, that Veneral Sathir would get this item because he united the Ixar tribes. So if it had gone missing in the period of time when the Ixar were divided into tribes, it just sort of makes sense that this powerful magical artifact would wind up in the ownership of Veneral Sathir, and then it does follow on that he would gift it to Drusilla because like the Howling Stones was basically made for her. So we know that this is sort of within the expected range of his behavior. Krillin agreed and unlocked the mystical door, disappearing into the red mist beyond. Weeks later he emerged. His eyes gleamed with satisfaction, yet his body, aged, beaten, and bruised, gave evidence to the horrors he had endured. In his hand was Modani's staff. The two experimented with the item, discussing its remarkable properties. Krillin, after much persuasion, convinced Modani to allow him to keep the staff for a brief time. He would present the item to the High Council in Eridan in hopes of uncovering the strange magics, then return the staff to Modani, as agreed, when the council there had finished examining it. The High Elf ventured to Otis and spent the next year collaborating with the Erudites in researching the staff's magical properties. An ambitious young erudite there by the name of Polzin Rid appealed to Krillin, expressing a desire to return with Krillin to the Over There and present himself as an apprentice to the enigmatic Modani. After a year's time, the two began their journey back to Kunark, so they spent a whole year in Eridan examining this item. One evening, however, while the two made camp, Krillin set Polzin in search of valuable herbs and components that grew in the surrounding area. The young erudite, bearing the serpent's staff in hand for protection, set out to obey his mentor's request. returning only to find that Krillin had been murdered. The journals recording the staff's research burned in the campfire, and their supplies were scattered about the site. Polzin fled, certain that the assailants were no more than a breath away. Unwilling to lead Krillin's murderers back to Erden, Polzin disappeared into the city of Payniel, walking amongst the heretics until he could safely return the staff to Modani. Polzin's wisdom, however, was his undoing. He was lost there when Payniel was invaded by Brel's elemental minions. Trapped within the heretic city, Polzin and the staff disappeared forever. Heirs to Krillin's teachings, though, have surfaced over the last decade. Jeb Lumset, Mizzle and Nadia Starfeast all claim to possess knowledge of the staff passed down to them by their Quaddadal enchanter during his time in Erden. Though their boasts remain unconfirmed, rumors of dangerous expeditions into the hole have surfaced, and many speculate that they seek to secure the lost Staff of the Serpent. Though Polzin's staff has yet to resurface, minstrels and gossip mongers from Fadewar have recently recounted tales of a spell user from Felwith who is reported to wield such a weapon. The self-proclaimed heirs to Krillin Pedant's teachings have yet to comment on the rumor, but their eyes are drifting eagerly toward the east. According to popular legend, this blackened staff is approximately 5 feet in length, seemingly covered in smooth, snake-like scales. It is said to resemble a cobra, yet once stretched rigid and straight, with its hood flared and fangs bared menacingly. Some students claim that the staff itself has the ability to transform into a snake at the user's command, serving the wielder loyally. I don't think it's quite 5 feet in the game, but nevertheless, it's a pretty accurate description, and the quest, I think, was both a cool quest in-game, and the description here was pretty cool. It's interesting that you get to interact with so many different things, like fighting the Sarnak, going to the Crypt of Downir and experiencing the Cly, talking about the Crypt of Drusilla Sathir, talking about Veneral Sathir, all this cool stuff. So they really touch on a lot with this and do a really good job. Not every epic is quite so well designed. But with that is the Enchanter Epic, folks. I hope you like it, and I look forward to the next episode coming soon.